My name is Kerry Van Dyke. I'm with the Utah Association of Conservation Districts, and I'm here to talk about a project that we've done this last year and into this year, regarding the House Bill 60, the safety plan that's required by that bill. There's the details on House Bill 60. It's called the Water Conveyance Facilities Safety Act. And what our project did was we worked with the Strawberry Highline Canal Company, which is in Payson, and we did a water conveyance facility safety management plan for them. And from that, we have converted that into a safety plan template, which can be used by any canal company in the state. Those are our partners on this project. We had quite a few people that were helping out with it. And now I know that it's kind of late morning, and just to make sure everybody's awake, I thought we could have just a couple pictures of some scantily clad cheerleaders. I apologize if this is offensive to anybody. House Bill 60, okay? In a nutshell, if you have a potential risk location on your canal, you have to do a management plan. Okay, what is potential risk? If the canal fails, has a high probability of causing loss of human life or damage to infrastructure. Okay, potential risk location, that's just if any part of your canal is a potential risk, and that's based on various factors such as location. Is it just fields downstream, or is it, in a residential area? Elevation, your canal sitting way above a residential area. Soil conditions, structural instability, how much water you're conveying, and other conditions. I don't know what other conditions are. But those are the factors. Okay, so you take all of those factors and you plug them into the formula, and that tells you whether you have a potential risk location. In reality, there's really no way to accurately quantify it. Do it the same from one canal to another. Okay, and so what it boils down to is the canal company making that decision. And what I've found is that the canal companies are actually quite conservative, and they want to, they're actually going to be more protective than in my opinion is necessary. But these are just some of the critics, what some of the critics have said regarding basically allowing the canal companies to regulate themselves. There was a lot of debate in the development of this legislation as to whether the state really needs to step in there and regulate everybody. For the Strawberry Highline Canal, this project that we went through, okay, you can see the red there, they designated three reaches on their canal as potential risk locations. And like I said, in my opinion, I thought that was a little bit overkill, but that's what they felt comfortable with. Okay? So, again, if the canal has a potential risk location, then they have to adopt a management plan, which is a water conveyance facilities safety management plan, or to abbreviate, we just call it a safety plan. And that is a protected record. Now, the safety plan, there's a lot more than this, but to kind of simplify this, basically everything falls into these 4 different categories. So we'll just run through those really quick. The general information is just maps and components, just where your canal runs, what kind of components are on that canal. The identification of risks, that's the potential slope instability and stormwater are the 2 things identified in the legislation that pose the most risk, and that's what needs to be identified and managed. Okay? So the slope instability evaluation, okay, there was a lot of questions. That was the biggest unknown in this whole process, just because there's any number of ways of doing it. And, you know, canal companies, are we going to, you know, pay somebody a bunch of money to do this? Can we do it ourselves? How comprehensive is it going to be? There was just a lot of questions there. Okay, but as we went through this process, there was really one major question that kept coming back, and that was, who's better, Wayne or Jimmer? Anybody know who the Wayne is I'm talking about here? Okay, this is Cache Valley then, right? Who saw Wayne Estes play? Okay. I promise not to talk about basketball anymore. For the slope instability, we put together this checklist called the Slope Stability and Land Use Inspection Sheet. The idea for this is that canal companies could use this checklist, their own personnel, and perform an inspection. And this is meant to be an inspection of the slopes, so below the canal, above the canal, rather than checking for the condition of the canal itself, which we're assuming that most canal companies are already doing that. So this is basically just gives things that you would look for above and below the canal, which would point to potential risks. And these are the three categories: land movement, water content, and human actions. Okay, now in the Strawberry Canal, there were 7 findings that were identified, and they were within these 5 different categories right here. Okay, now in the template, these have been, and so the template is basically the Strawberry Highline Canal's management plan. But some of the information has been removed, which they didn't want to have available to everybody. And the detail on these 7 findings has been removed from the template. But there is a separate example from a different canal company which demonstrates the use of this inspection sheet. And the finding in that case was a situation where there was a big pool of water below the canal, and so obviously that was of concern. And so that just that one example demonstrates the use of that inspection sheet in the template. So stormwater is the next big thing that needs to be identified. Now for Strawberry Highline, well, let me back up here. You have to estimate the flows for a 25-year storm, and then all of the places where stormwater comes into the canal, and then who's responsible for that stormwater. Okay? In Strawberry Highline, as a Bureau of Reclamation canal, they're technically not supposed to have any stormwater enter the canal. But what we found was that there were 10 points where surface water comes in and 1 place where there's a pipeline. Okay, here is an example of just where stormwater comes in, just surface water running over the ground, just comes in a lot of these places where there's bridges, there's no curbs there, and stormwater runs down the road and right into the canal. And then they had 1 pipeline where water was coming in. Now, so for Strawberry Highline, the solution to this was they have to work with the local communities and just eliminate all these points. For other canal companies, stormwater is going to be, it's going to be more than that. There's going to be a lot more that has to be managing that water actually, because it's going to just be coming into the canal. So in the template, there's a sample letter that you would send, and I'm assuming that a lot of canal companies actually, you know, probably have a pretty good relationship with the communities. They know who they're dealing with already, but there is a sample letter in the template which you send to the city saying, okay, we need this information. This is the information you need to provide to us for stormwater. Okay. This is just an NRCS. This is just an example of there's an NRCS program. If anyone would like access to that, just give me a call or talk to me. Just helps to estimate stormwater if, for example, there's some small communities or whatever that don't have the ability to do that. But so then the third part is the management of those risks. Okay, so for Strawberry Highline, there was the 7 slope instability findings, and those required either regular maintenance or regular monitoring, or they could use their existing resources to fix those. And there were two of them actually that are going to require larger scale projects, which will take a longer time. Okay, they would eliminate all their stormwater entry points. They had an implementation schedule and identification of external funding. Those are the parts of the management plan for mitigation of the risks. Okay, and then the last part that I call the contingency plan, there's a requirement that they show proof of insurance or other financial responsibility, and then an emergency response plan, which is just basically providing information to the city. If there's a problem, here's what you do. Okay. Here's Strawberry Highline's. It was basically just one page. Just here's our contact information, and then a map showing the service area of the canal. So it can be that simple. Conclusion: House Bill 60. If you have that potential risk location, you got to adopt a safety plan, and you got to distribute the emergency response plan. And May of 2013 is when that's all supposed to be done. Well, I got a couple more slides. I'll talk about House Bill 298 real quick. So this was the other bill that was passed in 2010, and this one is it's real simple. Basically, the Canal Company provides contact information and a general description of the canal, example from Cache Valley. And then the city or county, if ever they have a application for development that's close to the canal, they have to notify the Canal Company. And then they have to give the Canal Company a few days to respond. And that's basically it on that bill. But I just wanted to make this point here, that 298 and 60, the emergency response plan in House Bill 60, it's basically the same information as House Bill 298. And so my suggestion would be to just do a single delivery for both of these bills. Okay?